This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's going on, Real MVPs, and welcome back. We're here for another episode of What's Your Fantasy, episode 9, as it's going to be week 8 in the NFL. And before we get started with everything, and before I forget to do it, as I have many times, gonna go right into it. If you want to support MVP and support this podcast and other podcasts, head over to patreon.com. You can be a patron for just $1 a month. Just $1 a month. And $10 a month gives you an opportunity to come on a podcast, talk with Ricky and I about fantasy football, or go on the Fast Break podcast, talk about NBA, a number of different podcasts to go on and talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. And you can support that for $10 a month. You can go to mostvaluablepodcast.com, check out the t-shirts that we have there, the MVP t-shirts. Make sure you get one of those. They're good stuff, and I promise one day I will wear it. And then finally, go over to iTunes.
That every week.
One day, though. I promise. One day I will. I'm not promising what day, but I will. And finally, go over to iTunes. Give us that 5-star rating if you think that we're deserving of it. And let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about the podcast. And now, we're getting right into it. Brandon Swanson, across from Ricky Widmer.
What's up, what's up?
And Ricky, another week, not quite in the books yet, as right now the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Football Giants are playing to finish things up.
Yeah.
And it's a close one, and I'll kick it over to you as I usually do. How are we looking this week? How have things come in so far, and what are we still waiting on?
Well, at this moment, we are up 114.8 to 101.3. Here's the thing. We've got Calvin Ridley tonight, who currently at the moment has 2.9 points, whereas we've got Tristan, who has Tevin Coleman and Ito Smith, who are at 1.7 and negative 0.1, because Ito Smith has negative 1 yards right now. So hoping we can hang on for the win, but there were I got some questions for you when it comes to our team. First off, quarterback. Are we for sure back with the Aaron Rodgers train after this week, after the bye? After two 28-point weeks the weeks before against the Rams and the Patriots, are we buying in on the Aaron Rodgers train, or are we going to find a different quarterback? Because Andy Dalton has been not so good since we picked him up.
Yeah, I think we got to go back with Aaron Rodgers. He's done enough. Certainly, he did enough in that San Francisco game. He's a guy. I think,
San Francisco. That's my thought process.
But they were playing some really good defense. I wouldn't say it's San Francisco. They played pretty good defense. They played a pretty good game. I would say that we can roll with Aaron Rodgers right now.
Yeah, I think we have to. The top free agents in our league: Ryan Fitzpatrick, Case Keenum, Matthew Stafford, Eli Manning, Alex Smith.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one question I had was like, I'm doubting Aaron Rodgers, and I don't know why I am doubting Aaron Rodgers, but I am. But also, do we start to... I feel like now our running backs are interesting because Mark Ingram only had 6 points this week. Todd Gurley's been consistent. Our wide receivers should be fine with Edelman and Thielen. With Fuller and Lamar Miller this week, were they just good weeks this week, or do we put them back in the starting lineup now?
Well, see, with Mark Ingram, I think that it was just a week of
matchup dependent.
I think it was a tough matchup. Honestly, if you look at it, I don't think that Alvin Kamara did all that great.
He just had a touchdown.
That's the only thing. You take away the touchdown, it wasn't that great of a game for him. I mean, It was the number 1 defense in all of football. So
I mean, Mark Ingram's got Minnesota and the Rams coming up, though. Those are tough opponents.
They are, but I think that you could run against them a little bit. I also think that it's the Saints, it's not going to be a game where they're down and out, where they're having to throw all the time. So I think that it's all about that game script as well. Mark Ingram could definitely be in there, get a couple of touchdowns at the goal line. Alvin Kamara will do just the same type of thing. They don't really worry me. I'll be honest with you. It's the Saints. I feel pretty good about the Saints offense to get them work So I think Mark Ingram right now is good. But Lamar Miller, he looks certainly to be healthy. That's for sure.
And then the only other question I have is, I know he's playing right now, but Calvin Ridley. I mean, this is a guy 7.8, 7.7, right now at 2.9 in our league. Do we think about, unless he has a breakout game the rest of this one, do we think about maybe sitting him for like a Will Fuller who, like Will Fuller, if he gets 6 targets, he's going to get you at least 12 points.
Yeah, I think that I think that we may have to start sitting Calvin Ridley in one of my personal leagues. I sat Calvin Ridley this week in favor of Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb got 14 points. And again, Calvin Ridley right now he has 2. He has 2 points right now, and again he's one of those guys where I look at him and I don't think of him as necessarily a Deshaun Jackson, but I do look at him as a guy who he is going to need that at least one big play to be good. Whereas Deshaun Jackson, he needs a big play or he's got pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley can still get some catches, but he may only have 10 points and he's not getting you that 25. So it's kind of one of those situations right now, but he may, if he does not have a great game the rest of tonight, I think it may be worth looking into sitting him down, putting Fuller back into the lineup, or even looking at somebody else.
And then just some of the things, last thing about our league I wanted to bring up is how some of the other matchups are going, because we're in a playoff race right now as we get later on. So we're in a 3-way tie in our division, the East Division, where it looks like Kyle is going to get the easy win over Andy Gonzalez. And then Jake he got a narrow win over Kevin Cruz, 115.6 to 113.5 in their matchup. We need a win then this week. We need to stay even with those two guys, because as of right now, if you look at the playoff bracket, we're number 4. So if we stay even, we'll still have the tiebreaker over Kyle. Jake has the tiebreaker over us, but we have the same record as Team Riley, who is also in the other division. And Team Riley actually lost this week, so that's going to be good for us. So maybe we can move up to 3rd in the playoff seedings. We just got to get a win. We got to finish this one out with a win, which, cross our fingers, we are at the time of recording this.
And Ricky, let's just do our weekly Adam Thielen update.
Adam Thielen, 26 points. I'm glad you brought him up, because I was going to throw that dig, and I completely forgot to at the end of it. He had 26 points for us. I mean, he's looking like a solid pickup in our draft, and I hope he keeps it up, because I want to be right rather than wrong.
Most people usually do.
I know. I do. Like, and the thing is, every game except for 2 of them now, he's gotten a touchdown, and he's gotten over 100 yards, and I mean, 9 points of them coming off of his 9 catches in this one. Kirk Cousins, just keep throwing it to feeling the Thielen. As long as he's feeling the Thielen, I'm feeling the Thielen, and when we're feeling the Thielen, it's a good game. Was I saying feeling the Thielen too much? Because I think I was.
You said it plenty. I don't think you need to say it again.
It's like, we get it, Ricky. We get it. The words rhyme. That's the joke. They rhyme.
Well, Ricky, going right into what we're talking about today, kind of the number one story is there was a trade today. The Raiders continue to just get rid of any player that might actually have talent and give them to somebody else to have as many draft picks as they can in the first round, and that is what they did today. They trade Amari Cooper to the Dallas Cowboys for a first-round pick. Ricky, you and I talked about this last week when I filled in on the onside kick, and we talked about Dallas being kind of that number 1 team that we believed would be the team to do something like this, where Jerry Jones was that type of owner and general manager and president. I mean, he's all the things, but who would be like, yeah, fine, I'll do that. They need a wide receiver, but I also think that they looked at the game this past week and they looked at it and saw Dak can't do it all by himself. They had opportunities to win that game. They don't have enough weapons. It wasn't Zeke's day. He wasn't doing well on the ground. Didn't have anything going there. And it just wasn't really working out with anyone else. And then when it seemed to finally work out, when they finally hit a big play to Beasley, penalty. They had the one big play to Michael Gallup, but that was a blown coverage. Now Amari Cooper is going to come over. Dallas is going to be in a bye this next week, so Amari Cooper back-to-back bye weeks. It's perfect for him, a nice little vacation. And he's going to a team in Dallas where certainly there will be more scrutiny. Certainly the media will be all over him, so if he doesn't have 100 yards and a touchdown in his first week, they're going to ask, well, why not? But I think Ricky easily now, in my mind, he's the number one wide receiver over there in Dallas. And is he now a wide receiver that you certainly want to own? Because in Oakland, it was starting to get to the point of it's getting frustrating because it was a good week, then 2 bad weeks, then a good week, then 2 bad weeks. His past 2 weeks, he had been targeted 2 times. Now he goes over to Dallas. We know Dak will be looking for him. He's got a good big target to look for. That I think is going to be his safety blanket, his number one guy to go to, but at the same time, it may be one of those where Dak's going to be forcing it too much into Amari Cooper. But where do you see Amari Cooper right now in terms of wide receivers in fantasy land?
Well, for me right now, it's all a wait and see. Like, if I had Amari Cooper on my team, the first thing I would be thinking is, obviously, when he comes back off of the bye, the now second bye he's going to get, I want to see what he does against Tennessee, and it might be a 2-week kind of process to see what you're going to get, because unless you get, even if you get 15 points, and I'm talking non-PPR, if you get maybe like 20 points in PPR, you might be sitting, oh shit, I got to start him. But there might be that side that goes, was this just because they played Tennessee? Like, they're going up against Philly now, like the tough divisional matchup on the road. It might be a 2-week thing. It might be a week to 2-week thing, kind of feel out how he does, because we don't know if this is going to be a perfect marriage in Dallas. Like, I'm looking at an article right now, and it's funny that Dallas came out and said this, because my first thought was, and I'm going to make this joke on the onside kick as well, it doesn't matter. I mean, Cooper can run 25, 30 yards down the field. They'll just throw a crossing route to Cole Beasley and just let Cole Beasley do it with his legs. Oh, Amari, just fly a fly route. Yeah, that's good. Cole Beasley dump off. Like, that's all it's going to be. Don't expect Dak to be throwing it and airing it out super long.
Now, can I ask really either?
That's a joke, by the way.
I was going to say, yeah. I really wasn't sure, because a lot of people, and I think a lot of Dallas fans actually would say, would they be upset with agreeing with you that's what's been happening?
Well,
but at the same
what's been
time,
happening. But what the Cowboys have said is they've come out, and I'm looking at this ESPN article says it. Their staff is admitting the wide receiver committee hasn't worked, and they are hoping that Cooper is the number one wide receiver. So to me, it's going to definitely take a game for sure before I think to start Cooper, because not only do I want to see how he does in Dallas, I want to know if I can trust Dallas. Where that first game, if Dallas shows me they're going to go all in and say, all right, he's the number one wide receiver, then go ahead. Go ahead and start him against Philly, because I look at it, and you look at just this last game, Cole Beasley had 8 targets, Allen Hurns had 6, and then Mike Gallup, who had a pretty big game, he had 5 targets. So where are those targets going to go? If those end up being 8 for Cole Beasley, then I'm still sitting there going, well, Dallas, are you lying to me? Like, if Amari Cooper's coming in, he's going to get 9, 10 targets right away, then depending on what he does with those targets, you may want to start him against Philly, but I would use that Tennessee game as a buffer to see what we're going to get from Cooper, and also if we can trust this Dallas coaching staff.
Well, is this finally going to help Dak Prescott again? Is this going to get him back on the right track? Could this not only be a good thing possibly for Amari Cooper, but could this be a good thing for Dak Prescott? Because when Dak Prescott had, now I know this is different because it's not just one guy, but when he had Dez Bryant, he also did have Jason Witten there, and things were a little bit different. But when he had Dez Bryant, I felt like Dak was a better quarterback. I felt like Dak was making bigger plays, more confident that he had a legitimate wide receiver to go up and make a play on the football. And I think that that's exactly what he'll have here with Amari Cooper. So possibly, not only is Amari Cooper maybe going to get better in this situation in Dallas, but maybe that makes Dak Prescott a little bit of a better quarterback as well.
I mean, it can. I mean, having that number one wide receiver to go to is usually going to make a guy a lot better. But the thing that I worry about too when it comes to Dak is how's that relationship with Amari Cooper going to be out the gate. It's good that they've got a bye week to kind of work on some things. Cooper can kind of learn how the offense is run. It's not going to be a situation where we saw in Jacksonville where it's like, where the hell is Carlos Hyde? Oh, yeah, that's right. He just got traded to the team and doesn't know anything about what they're doing. So, of course, they're not going to play him. There's a good chance that he plays that Tennessee game. And that's another thing. We got to see that relationship between Amari, between Dak, and is Dak going to buy in on that, or is it going to come down to it? Dak's going to be like, I'm in a comfort zone, and when it's fight or flight, he goes to the flight, and his first reaction is dump it down to Cole Beasley.
Another interesting thing is that this will be the first time that Dak's had a wide receiver that isn't a diva.
Mm-hmm.
Amari Cooper is not a diva. He is not a diva by any means, and this is a guy who's usually pretty quiet, goes about his business, just gets it done, and that's it. There's really no talking. There's no Odell Beckham type of, well, I need more catches, I need more passes my way. No, he just puts the work in to get bigger, better, and stronger, and he was hoping it was going to work out in Oakland. Mm-hmm. And I think he was really excited for the year in Oakland.
Then John Gruden
and obviously,
came to town.
But this was when John Gruden was there. But I don't know when exactly this all just like snapped for John Gruden, for Oakland, for him to go, okay, Reggie McKenzie, everything that you did, I'm tearing that down and getting rid of it. It's really interesting what they're doing over there in Oakland, but maybe this does help. Maybe this does help Amari Cooper to kind of get his career a little bit more kick-started. And I know that he had a couple of seasons over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards, but he hasn't had a season yet where he's had over 7 touchdowns. And I'm not saying that you need to be an elite receiver, you need to have over 7 touchdowns, but you also better have like 1,400 receiving yards. So there's got to be some things that need to change with Amari Cooper for people to take him and be like, okay, yeah, now he's in Dallas, but now also he's an elite receiver. And like you said, it's going to take a little bit of time, I think, and it may take more time even out of that bye week in that Tennessee game. That may be the game that you wait and you watch and you see. And then for the game against the Eagles, you go, okay, well, now I can insert him into my lineup.
Well, and the thing that I look to is, let's go back to 2016 when Amari Cooper, that was his last 1,000-yard season. What did Oakland have that it didn't have this year or in 2017? It had a run game. Like Latavius Murray was there. He was well over what Marshawn Lynch has been doing. He had about 788 yards and 12 touchdowns in that 2016 year. And I felt like the rushing attack, I'll even check 2015 because...
And that was with injuries. That was with
injuries too. But even in 2015, Latavius Murray, an 1,000-yard rusher for the Oakland Raiders. So, I mean, that is something too that, and this is going to play into fantasy as well with Amari Cooper, is... Now that this team that he's going to has a run game, how is that going to support the pass? Because in Oakland, it was, hey, we'll just double down on Amari Cooper because we don't have to worry about anyone else or worry about the run game. Well, with Ezekiel Elliott, you're going to have to worry about him, and you can't just put all of your eggs into the Amari Cooper basket where he might be getting some one-on-one coverage, which, if you have him on your fantasy team, might be good if the production's there. But then I circle back to, let's see how he does against Tennessee, and then kind of judge whether you put him into your lineup the next week or not.
Ricky, there's another wide receiver right now that people are talking about that could get traded, and it seems like the heat is getting ramping up a little bit, and that is on Demaryius Thomas over in Denver. Do you believe that Demaryius Thomas will be traded? I know this maybe goes a little bit into the onside kick, but do you believe that Demaryius Thomas will be traded? And if you believe that he will be traded, what team would you like to see him traded to in terms of a fantasy perspective, and a team that maybe it would make sense for him to go to?
I mean, I don't really. You kind of hit me with a curveball with that one.
Yeah, well, you do that to me all the time.
I know,
so
I do it all the time. But I think the thing that I kind of almost want to say, like, any situation that's not Denver. And I'm not saying that, like, oh, Denver's a shit situation or anything, but look at who the quarterback is. Case Keenum. We know what Case Keenum is. When he was in Minnesota, you look at the numbers. Hell, I'm going to pull them up right now because that's why we're doing a podcast, right? To pull up numbers and kind of look at them.
Yeah.
If I look back to the Vikings wide receiver numbers last year compared to this year, because obviously different quarterbacks, you look at the leaders in the receiving numbers. Adam Thielen had over 1,000 yards, but only 4 touchdowns, whereas Stephon Diggs had 849 yards, but had 8 touchdowns, and Kyle Rudolph also had 8 touchdowns, whereas so far this year, now at Kirk Cousins, Thielen has almost as many yards. He's got more yards, and he's got more touchdowns. But Stephon Diggs, the yards are there, but the touchdowns are less. Even Kyle Rudolph, less yards, less touchdowns. So, I mean, with Case Keenum, we know what it is. He favors the one receiver over the other, but then there's some wide receivers that might be getting looks into the end zone compared to the other. And I just feel like with this Denver team, it's been that Case Keenum, likes Emmanuel Sanders a little bit more and targets him a little bit more, but also they've got 2 rookie running backs out of that backfield that they like to get involved as well.
But they also have 2 rookie wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's part of it as well, of why they even want to move him, is
and when
because
you throw in a trick
they want to get these guys
like you throw in
time.
a trick play, like they had Emmanuel Sanders throwing a touchdown to Cortland Sutton on the Thursday night game. It's like, you're right. They've got Hamilton. They've got Sutton as well. And it looks like Sutton is getting a little bit more time. And maybe by moving Demaryius, this is them, where maybe if you're a Cortland Sutton owner, that's another thing where Demaryius Thomas moves, and then that gives Sutton more targets because now he's 2 instead of 3 on the depth chart.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that when you look even away from the fantasy perspective for a moment, it's the fact that I think they're trying to possibly move him is because he's towards the end of his prime. He's probably only got maybe a year or 2 left in his prime. I know that there'd probably be a lot of people who might disagree with me on that, because when even Adam Schefter put out a tweet and said, star receiver in Denver, Demaryius Thomas, people are like, star? What are you talking about, star? And I think people need to back off a little bit and look at the fact that this guy has been pretty good, and they can say all they want, oh, well, that was with Peyton Manning and everything like that. Demaryius Thomas has had some really good seasons of football, and there's no denying that. I don't care who your quarterback was, you still produced.
But that plays into it, and I'm not saying it's all a Peyton Manning made Demaryius Thomas who he was, but like I just used on a lesser example, if I were to tell you you're a star wide receiver, Brandon, I'm telling you 1 year you're going to have Peyton Manning, the next year you're going to have Case Keenum. Which year do you think you'll have the better year with?
Well,
Peyton Manning.
Well, but obviously that makes complete sense. But at the same time, Peyton Manning did a really good job, I think, of distributing the football. When Peyton Manning was
because he's a better quarterback.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's completely true. It's completely true. You can knock Demaryius Thomas for his drops.
Yeah,
you can definitely do that. But you cannot knock him if the ball's not going his way.
The scheme is also different as well.
He's never been a yelling wide receiver who says, get me the damn ball. He doesn't do that. There's many guys who do. He doesn't. But when Peyton Manning was the quarterback, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, everyone wanted to own like both of those. Like, I've always found it weird if people are playing two wide receivers from the same team on their fantasy football team. But if it was when Peyton Manning was there and you had Sanders and you had Thomas, you would want to play them both. I mean, they were getting a touchdown and maybe 80 to 100 yards each per game. So that's where something, comes into play, obviously, now where Demaryius Thomas just isn't getting the same looks that Emmanuel Sanders was. But an interesting spot that I could see potentially where he lands, and that's because right now there aren't many options for this young quarterback. What about the New York Jets? What about the New York Jets for Sam Darnold? They desperately need somebody. Quincy Enunwa, I thought, was maybe going to be that guy. He's hurt right now. Robbie Anderson's been inconsistent. Terrell Pryor they got rid of. They don't have much. They have, Herndon? Like a backup tight end, I think. Who? Exactly. I mean, it's like, who are you throwing it to, Sam Darnold? So maybe you bring in Demaryius Thomas. He spends his last couple of years there helping out the young guy, helping to really, I guess, work with him on some things and stuff like that, and be a safety blanket there for Darnold as he kind of eases into the NFL. That could be, I think, a really good spot, and he certainly would be the number one wide receiver and target over there.
Well, and the thing I'm kind of mapping together right now, and I think I've got the full map, is another thing you have to look at is when you look at, I want to go back to the Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas thing with the different quarterbacks, is it's not just the quarterbacks themselves. Like, let's see, Manning was there from 2012 to 2015. That means his first 2 years, his first year he had someone different, but his second and third year with the Broncos, he had Adam Gase as his offensive coordinator, and Gase was even there as a QB coach his first year. So he'd been working for Gase or with Gase his first 3 years with the Broncos. Then in the season that Peyton had it was after the Super Bowl loss, after Super Bowl win, his last year where it was like he only started 9 games. That was with Rick Dennison. And then obviously you saw the offense go completely different to where it was with Peyton Manning. When Adam Gase was running it, it was a different offense. Then they had Mike McCoy after last season, get him out of here. He just got fired by the Cardinals, and the Cardinals were like, it's funny because Dave Demede at Too Old to Game on Thursday was like, yeah, their OC is going to be fired. The next day, Adam Schefter tweet, Mike McCoy has been fired from the Cardinals. And then now they have the Broncos do. Now they have Bill Musgrave as their offensive coordinator. So first off, they've had 2 coordinators in 2 years, but also it's a lot different of a system. I feel like that Adam Gase offensive system fit a Peyton Manning and these receivers better than what we saw from Mike McCoy and what we're seeing from Bill Musgrave right now, because Vance Joseph, he's not an offensive guy. He is a defensive guy, and he's going to let a guy like Musgrave handle more of these offensive duties.
Ricky, I want to go into another topic now, and it's a topic that we just seem to not be able to shake, and it is the fact that
Marvin Hall touchdown. Who the hell is Marvin Hall?
Exactly.
Who the hell is Marvin Hall, Brandon? And why does Austin Hooper got another reception, by the way? He's up to 45 yards.
Yep.
Calvin Ridley, why does he only have 1 catch? Get him more targets, but go on.
Okay, thanks.
I digress. I saw a touchdown. I got all excited. And then I was like, who the hell's Marvin Hall?
Plays for the Falcons.
I know that, but I'm sorry.
So the topic I wanted to get back into again is this whole thing of now they're saying again that Le'Veon Bell is not going to be reporting this week to the Steelers facility. So it's going to continue where he doesn't report this week. And what happens? What happens now? Bell's no show. It's the latest thing to be reported. It's something that continues to happen. He hasn't signed the franchise tender. He has to do that before he can do anything. This is becoming something where are we looking at a situation where he just doesn't play at all this year?
I mean, it's a chance, but if you have him on your team, you either have one of 2 options. Either you're lucky and you're like, hey, you know what, I'm winning without him. I haven't been crushed by injuries. I can still keep him. And in that sense, just keep him on your team, because if he does come back and maybe can contribute better than a tier 3 wide receiver, because the way I had it put to me was listening to Matthew Berry, is he said when Bell comes back, whenever he does, he's going to be a top 12 running back at best. So to me, if your team's not dealing with injuries and you can keep him on your bench and be fine with that, go ahead. Because if he comes back, he could be a solid flex, maybe a solid running back 2 for you, depending on your league, depending on how many teams are there as well. But also, if you're a team that's decimated with injuries and you're waiting for Le'Veon Bell, I think it's time to cut that cord and deal with some of the injuries that you may have.
And we're in week 8. This weekend will be week 8. Bell has to report by week 10, or it rolls over into next season. So we're looking at a situation where he's got 2 weeks.
I think he'll report this year. I think he's waiting until the last possible second, because the thing of it too, and we've talked about this on the Onside Kick numerous times. The way I've always seen it is, if it was me, wait until the last possible second, because any less game, we just talked about on the Primetime podcast about an injury to a player. He comes back and plays week 8, and then gets an Earl Thomas type of an injury. Like, after Earl Thomas got injured, there were tons of people on Twitter. It's like, this is why players hold out. This is why players hold out for contracts, because now they're injured and they're not going to get that same money. Where if I'm Le'Veon Bell, wait until that last possible week. And if I'm a Le'Veon owner, wait until that week 10 at the latest. However, if you're decimated from injuries and you're kind of on the cusp of a playoff spot, you may have to make a pimp decision and drop them.
All right, I just wanted to touch on that very briefly, because I had seen that news, and it's just like, oh my gosh, are we going to continue with this?
The Le'Veon Bell update.
Yeah, exactly. The weekly Le'Veon Bell update, and the update is he's still not back. But a couple of injuries to look at around the NFL. Marshawn Lynch, he's on IR. Sony Michel, he got hurt this past weekend with a knee in the Patriots game. Nothing too serious. He came into the game with a knee injury. This may be something, though, that he's dealing with the rest of the season, and that's certainly something to monitor. But now with Marshawn Lynch out, is it time for Doug Martin? Is it Doug Martin time over in Oakland?
Oh, God. Maybe. With Oakland, I'll be honest, I'm not touching anything on Oakland. When it comes to fantasy, I'm staying away. Like, I know they call their fan base the black hole. I'm avoiding them like the black plague. I am avoiding Oakland at all costs.
All right. So I guess my next thing to you would be, if you were a Marshawn Lynch owner, or even if you're a Sony Michel owner and you're a little worried, okay, a couple of injuries here, who are some guys that you're looking at on the waiver wire this week that might still be available at the running back position that you would say, hey, go and pick them up as soon as you can?
There's one that, he's a hit or miss, but depending on how you like Houston, Frank Gore could be one that you look at. Like, against the Bears, 12.9 this past week, 4.3, but they did play a Detroit team and were down a lot in that game and necessarily wasn't running the ball a lot in that one. And I'm looking at guys that are open in our league, which is a little bit deeper of a league. If I go ahead and hit all, I'm going to go to own percentage. Let's see. There's guys like Javaris Allen. I'm not going to take that back. Here's one that I'm going to ask you about, boom or bust. This is a guy that has been getting primary carries the last 2 weeks. He's owned in about half of leagues. 10.3 in week 7, 30.9 this past week. Marlon Mack, you pushing the button on him?
100%, yes. Yes, absolutely. He was supposed to be the starting running back. He was hurt. He was hurt for the first part of the season. He's back now. He looks completely healthy. He's the guy. I am all over Marlon Mack.
Because he's one you could go after, but yet again, we've only seen 2 sample sizes, and we've kind of seen the good and the bad. We've seen the 30, we've seen the 10. Is he going to settle in the middle? Will he settle back to that 10? We don't really know what his range is yet.
I like Marlon Mack because he's a good running back. He can catch passes. This is a good guy. This is a good running back. He's I don't want to say that he's a stud, but he's a guy who I think can really...
He's got potential.
Develop well in this system and be a running back that you could own for a number of years down the road if he stays healthy. That's going to be his number one thing. Can he stay healthy?
I mean, I'm trying to find other ones, and there are just like the running back position right now, as you get lower and lower, is just kind of
It's worse and worse. It's worse
just
and worse.
Barren. Like guys like Ty Montgomery, I'm like, oh, he had 10 points in the last game. Oh, wait, but he only had 4 attempts for 12 yards and a touchdown, and he only had, 2 receptions and 10 yards? So that's 3 of his 10 right there. So it's like not the most sexy picks if you really need a running back and you're kind of looking for one. It might be like, hey, I just got to do with what I can get.
Right now, a guy that you might be able to go get is Raheem Mostert from San Francisco. It looks like he's going to be the starting running back right now. Matt Breida is out with another injury. He got hurt this past weekend after just a couple of plays. So Raheem Mostert could be a guy who you go and get, and especially if you're looking at a PPR, this is a guy who catches passes out of the backfield, so that could be helpful. But really, at this point, if you weren't one of those people who went and picked up Nick Chubb, you're just kind of out of luck for a lot of those other things. If you didn't pick up Nick Chubb, if you didn't pick up Marlon Mack, there's not a whole lot else out there right now. There's not. There might be. There might be again, but
do you
there's
make a
not a whole
trade
lot.
for like a Lamar Miller or a Carlos Hyde? Do you make a kind of one of those like lower tier guys? Do you make a kind of lower tier trade for one of those guys if you're really pinching for a running back?
Lamar Miller, yes. For Carlos Hyde, no. Who knows what's going to go on over there? So clearly the injury to Leonard Fournette is I think a little bit more severe than people believe.
Like, I'll throw this at you.
But then TJ Yeldon, he's the guy right after Fournette, and then you have Carlos Hyde. The thing that you usually want to try and stay away from with running backs is a running back by committee. Why would you want to go right into a committee and try and get Carlos Hyde? We know he's a good talent, but
let me throw this at you. And this is Dave's running backs this year. You ready for it?
Yeah.
In our personal league, Leonard Fournette has been injured. Chris Thompson, injured. Jay Ajayi, injured. Marshawn Lynch, injured. LaShawn McCoy, injured. If you're in that situation, what do you even do? Like, do you go ahead?
I think you just give up and you hope for better things next year.
You're 2-4. You're going to be 2-5, hoping for a new season. Well, do you maybe say, hey, you know what? I've got both Matt Ryan and Patrick Mahomes. Maybe I move on Matt Ryan to try to get a low-end running back that might be like a third running back for most teams, but for me is going to need to be my number one because some points is better than none. Or do I try to and I'm looking at the rest of his team. He's got Jarvis Landry, who didn't play this week. He's got T.Y. Hilton on that team. He's got Greg Olsen on that team. Does he maybe move some of these pieces that he might have had on his bench to try to get some running back out? Of course, he's trading with us, which I'll be the first to tell you. The guys in the MVP league don't know how to trade. By the way, this is how you trade, Brandon. Are you ready? I'm offering you a trade. I offer you said trade. Do you say yes or no? Just for example, say you say no.
Okay, I say no, but could we counter offer with something?
Exactly. That's what you do. I offered you. If you don't like it, offer me something back. Then if I don't like that, if I can't work from that, then it ends. No. How our league works, it either works one of two ways. Number one, hey, Brandon, here's this trade. No. Or two, hey, Ricky, what do you want for Gronk? I don't know. Offer me something. Get the juices flowing. Otherwise, I'm going to ask for Julio Jones, and you're going to say no, and then, boom, it's going to be over. Offer me something, then we can get a dialogue going. It bugs me. It bugs me with our personal league. No one knows how to trade in that league. Nobody knows the art of the trade. The art of the deal. No one knows it.
I see you're upset.
I'm a little upset that I'm surrounded by imbeciles that don't know how to trade. I'm sorry, guys, but you guys are imbeciles when it comes to trading.
I don't think so. You haven't ever tried to trade with me.
You're probably the only one. I mean, we tried. You said you'd think about it, and then I took the deal off the table because I didn't want to make
Ricky
it.
Ricky said, no, thank you.
Yeah, I almost made that deal, though. I would have sent you Mark Ingram and got Le'Veon Bell, and would have sent you Gronk and would have got Kyle Rudolph. That would have helped you out. I mean, you'd be getting Mark Ingram and not Le'Veon Bell.
True, but I mean, I've been winning. I could possibly win a game today.
We're tied.
I know. Still, I know. It could possibly win a game today, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that's could be 5-2 without Le'Veon Bell and his sorry ass right now. But Ricky, the final thing that I'll ask you, and I ask you every week, who are you looking at? Who'd you like this week? And who is someone that you would definitely want to go and try and get off the waiver wire if you could, if they were still available? Well, and then who are you looking at that you're like, okay, if they're on your team, get them off. They're not going to be doing you any good.
Well, I mean, there's 1 and 2. One is a guy that we picked up that I want to ask you about is Taylor Gabriel. He's owned in a little bit more this week than he was last week, but this is a guy 30.4, 16.9. Then this past week, 5.6. If he's available, should people pick him up, or should they go back to, he had 2 good games, stay away from him because he's not going to be a consistent double-digit guy?
No, I like him. I do like Taylor Gabriel. I think that he's one of those big play threats. So that's how I think you're going to see him work. And he's not always going to have a huge game. But as we've seen, a lot of these wide receivers, even when like Mitch Trubisky's having a big game, that doesn't mean Allen Robinson has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Allen Robinson in the game against, who was it? The game against Miami. He had 23 yards in a TD. I mean, he's not scoring that many points, but then Taylor Gabriel had like 5 catches for 100 yards.
And
if you're in a PPR, that's 15 points. So that's great, and I think that you'll see more games like that from Taylor Gabriel than you won't.
And another guy I am completely baffled around, and he's on our team. I don't know if we're going to keep him long term. He's owned in 35% of leagues. If you've got a guy like D.D. Westbrook, where against Dallas, he had 12.8, but like against KC and Houston, 8.5 and 5.7 are around those. And everything that's going on with Blake Bortles on a short leash. If you either have D.D. Westbrook or if he's there, do you trust him with how this Jacksonville team has been going?
I don't trust anyone on Jacksonville right now.
The Oakland Raider treatment.
Well, I mean, I don't. I was really surprised with how poor they played this past week against Houston. They are bad. They are bad. Offensively, defensively, they're a bad team right now. And there's nobody that I would trust on Jacksonville and say, yeah, D.D. Westbrook would be good. D.D. Westbrook is good. Who's throwing him the football? Right now, you may not want anyone who's throwing him the football.
Yeah, those are just some of the guys, though. I'm thinking more wide receiver heavy. Maybe it's because that's the one part, that flex spot is what I'm looking at for our team.
Sure, absolutely. One of the guys, he's probably not out there or available for anybody right now, but Nick Chubb, I think that would have been a guy definitely to go and try and get. I think he's going to be a really good talent. He already showed it in a couple of bursts for Cleveland before he became the starter, before that Carlos Hyde trade. And then even this past weekend, he started off slow, but ended up scoring, getting a touchdown, 14 points.
79% of leagues.
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, people were going up and gobbling him up as quick as they could.
No, and he's one, I sent our group text, the one, Carlos Hyde was traded. I didn't even think about it. Didn't even think to pick him up because I assumed someone already had him. I assumed someone had already had him, kind of stashing him away for when he does take the starting role. And I should have went for him because then I would have had Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram, and Nick Chubb.
And another guy that I'll say is someone I think we've talked about him before, and we talked about him a little bit earlier tonight already, but how about Cole Beasley? How about Cole Beasley to pick him up? Now that you're going to have we
just talked about the Amari Cooper thing, and his number is going to take a dip? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that now that you're going to have Amari Cooper and you're actually going to have a true legit wide receiver on the outside that you can go to, maybe that frees up Cole Beasley a little bit more over the middle, and that people aren't necessarily having to put, they're not paying all the attention to him, because lately, pretty much all season, Cole Beasley has been like the number one wide receiver, at least the last couple of weeks here. because it's been that wide receiver by committee. With Amari Cooper coming in, Allen Hurns' time is kind of it's going to the wayside. But Cole Beasley can continue to be that possession wide receiver like the Golden Tate, where Amari Cooper can come in and be the Kenny Galladay, to kind of refer to the Detroit Lions. But I think Cole Beasley actually a guy that you may want to be able to scoop up and get, especially for a PPR.
No, and I mean, for me, the only thing with him is it going to be yin or yang? Is it going to be a good thing, or is it going to hurt his numbers because now more of the targets are going to an Amari Cooper rather than a Cole Beasley? Like, is it going to take away from his 8 targets that we're seeing kind of consistently?
You know, I think that's another question, and only time will tell on that one. We'll have to wait and see.
That's exactly it. We're going to have to wait and see.
Ricky, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, right now I'll give a final fantasy update. I was just checking the basketball side of things because I was curious. I don't run that one. I let Sean run it. But I'm that kind of like, how I treat that is with ours, I'm a hands-on owner. Getting in there, getting my hands dirty. With the fast break, I'm the owner that's like, I've got Sean, who's my GM. He's my president of basketball operations. He's kind of doing his thing, and then every once in a while I'll check in to see where we are in the standings because I want to win, especially if I'm putting my name on it. But with What's Your Fantasy, let's see, 114.8 to 102.8 as this game is just nearing halftime as we are ending the recording today. And then with me and you, I believe it's still 175, 170, or 75, 75. Man, if it was 175, 175, let's just end in a tie. Yep, it is 75, 75. OBJ's gotten you 5 points. Ridley and Hooper have gotten me 5 points as well. So we will end in a tie towards the end of the night.
That's hysterical.
God, I'm hoping just Ridley, 1 more yard. Come on, man. Get him the fucking ball. Oh. Whew, I'm getting agitated when I start swearing. When I start swearing, I'm agitated about it. Like, come on, Matt Ryan, get him the ball. Or Hooper, one of the two.
Well, that is going to wrap it up for us today. Again, make sure to check out patreon.com and become a patron. Support us. Just $1 a month can do it. $10 a month can get you on a podcast. Go and check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. You can get a t-shirt there. Dave Oster is showing them off there on mostvaluablepodcast.com. And then also, finally, Ricky always loves to talk about it. He hates being called a good old boy. He just hates it.
That's the Primetime Podcast. We're not a couple of good old boys. I don't even think, besides Calvin Ridley, I don't know if we brought up anyone from the SEC. I mean, Dak was technically. Oh, Amari Cooper. Wasn't Amari Cooper Alabama?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, we were a couple of good old boys on this podcast talking about SEC guys. We should stay away from them, right, Brandon?
Well, again, make sure, head to iTunes, give us that 5-star rating if you think we are deserving, and write a little comment as well. We would love that. But again, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Hopefully we were able to give you some fantasy help, and hopefully not enough help to beat us, though, in the MVP league, because we want to continue to win there. But for Ricky Widmer, I'm Brandon Swanson saying so long, and thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend, and enjoy Week 8 in the NFL. So long.